What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Horrorheads podcast. I am Rich Mallery, here with my co-host, Jerry Lourenco.
Hey, what's going on?
Follow us at Horrorheads Podcast on Instagram, or you can email us at horrorheadspodcast@gmail.com. Send us your love and your hate. So tonight for our 13th episode, that's super exciting, 13 fucking episodes. We're gonna start. We're gonna have a special guest on, filmmaker, writer, director Eddie Lengyel, who's gonna talk about his most recent film, Byte, and then we're gonna stay on the werewolf tip, and we're gonna talk about a couple other classic werewolf films. We're gonna talk about the 2000 film Ginger Snaps, and we're gonna talk about this British film from 2014 called Howl. And super excited about that. It actually is a full moon, I believe, right now. So the
Yeah, I
timing
think you're right.
is perfect. It's still daylight here where I am, but I believe it is a full moon tonight. So that is perfect timing to do this werewolf episode.
It's getting dark over here pretty quick, and pretty excited to have Eddie here. So he reached out to the show. He mentioned that he was a filmmaker. We checked out some of his films, and we thought it'd be a lot of fun if he would join us on the show. So, I mean, we're going to bring Eddie in a few minutes, but I think it'd be a lot of fun now, like in the background while we're talking to Eddie, if we did something like a little drinking, a little secret drinking game. Rich, what do you think about that?
A secret drinker name, so like only you and I know about it.
Only we know, and then obviously the listeners could play along with us at home as well. So Eddie, you're gonna find out when you listen back, if you listen back. Depends on how the night goes.
Okay, that's fun. Let's do it. What's the game?
Yeah. All right. So here's the game. If Eddie says the word werewolf or film at any time, we take a sip. And that's it. It's that simple. And it doesn't matter if he says werewolf film, werewolf film, werewolf film 3. We got to keep sipping every single time he says it. But let's not make it obvious. That way it's not, that way he doesn't.
Like I won't be like, oh shit.
And, I'll give him a heads up, that we did something fun in the background. We're just trying to do something a little crazy here. So we'll see how it goes. We're probably gonna get pretty ripped up doing this, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and since he is here to talk about a werewolf film, it should be really interesting. So, okay, yeah, I'm game to do it. Should we get our guest on so we could start pouring and start taking some sips, or what do you think?
Yeah, let's go get Eddie. Let's do it.
All right, awesome. Well, our guest is here, writer director Eddie Lengyel. Nice to meet you. I haven't met you yet, so super excited to chat with you tonight.
Awesome, man. Nice to meet you too, buddy.
Yeah. And just so before we get into kind of getting to know Eddie a little bit, as fans of this show know, Jerry and I do a bit of whiskey drinking. So before we kind of get into it, I'm just going to talk about what I'm going to drink tonight. I actually have two things because one is almost empty. I have Trade Water Bourbon Whiskey, Kentucky Straight, sour mash bourbon whiskey. I actually like this a lot. And then I have something I hate called Creek Water, which is terrible. And I bought it a long time ago and I can't finish it. So I'm hoping I could actually knock some of it down tonight. So I'm going to pour this Trade Water right now and just kind of get right into it. It's 90 proof.
So you got plans. You got 2 bottles over there. Okay.
2 bottles. One's almost empty though. So this is probably going to finish this one.
That's pretty interesting. So I'm all about the treat yourself kind of mood right now because it is my birthday week. So I went out and I purchased some Bullet 10-year right here, and
Nice.
I just poured it, and I'm gonna take a sip. So I'm gonna say cheers to Eddie and Rich, and we're gonna take a sip here. So cheers. Guys.
Cheers.
Oh man. All right, what are you tasting, Rich?
This is good. It just tastes like, honestly, just like a standard kind of bourbon. It does have that caramel taste, which I haven't had in a few weeks. It's sweet. It's like a little bitter too at the same time. It's just smooth and easy. I actually recommend this a lot, Trade Water. I thought when I saw it sour mash, I thought it was going to be like Jack Daniels, but it's nothing like Jack Daniels. It's really
Wow. That's interesting. Yeah, Jack Daniel's is a little rough sometimes with sweetness on it, but it's interesting how you're describing it. The Bullet 10-year, it's freaking delicious. Definitely like one of my top 5. A lot of caramel, of course, a lot of vanilla, smooth, light burn, so smooth you barely taste it. I think there's like a little bit of a barrel at the end there, a little woodsy kind of taste. So it's pretty good. So I'm going to be drinking this for the evening, and we'll see how it goes.
You guys are taking me back to the day when we used to go to the bar and we'd order the Jack or the Seagram 7. and we get the two shots to start the night, and you were buzzed within 5 minutes, man. You're buzzing after two shots of Jack.
Yeah, you go hard.
Yeah, but like you said, I remember it burned though, no doubt about it. The Jack burns, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to mix Jack with something. It's tough on its own. If you mix it with like Coke, it's fine, but Coke's bad for you, so I don't like that. Whiskey's fine. Cool. So now that we started our drinking, let's talk to Eddie. Let's get to know him. So what we Eddie reached out to us. Eddie, you've written and directed 9 feature films, correct? With Byte being your 9th. Do I have that right?
No, I think it's 8. Howl, Voodoo, Scarred, Krampus, Ratchet, Melons, but 8. I'm working on 9.
So yeah, Eddie has about 8 films out. He runs Fright Tech Pictures, and he definitely specializes in some horror genre films. He has some folk horror, holiday horror, monster horror, slashers. He's got a little bit of everything. So I think he's a super talented director, and if his films are any sort of indication of the type of guy he is, I think we're gonna have a lot of fun tonight. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes here. So Eddie, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like where are you from? How'd you get into filmmaking, and most of all, how'd you land on horror films as your genre of choice?
Yeah. Short version. When I was a teenager, me and my best friend Dean Ross used to do these haunted houses for the neighborhood. And they kept growing each year, getting bigger and bigger. And final year that we did it, we had lines, and we actually made like $400. This is back in the 80s. So that was like a lot of money for like 15-year-old kids in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
And we started messing around with super 8mm film, and we were gonna go to college and be a team, and then we went our separate ways. I'll give you the short version, right? Go fast forward 20 years. I met my current girlfriend, and we were watching. She's a big horror buff, and we were watching I think Chainsaw, and I'm like, God, we used to like mess around with film back in the 80s, and we were kids. And she's like, why don't you do it now? And I'm like, oh, come on, I can't do that. It's to make a movie, really? I had no clue, right? And she's like, yeah, let's go to the library, get a book. So we got Lloyd Kaufman's Make Your Own Damn Movie.
I love that book. Actually, I'm a huge fan of that book. I've read it multiple times.
Right?
I highly recommend it to anyone who's a filmmaker or trying to get into film. That How to Make Your Own Damn Movie, great book. And the other one he wrote before that, which I also think is really good. I think it's Everything I Needed to Learn About Filmmaking. I learned by making Toxic Avenger, something like that. Everything I learned about filmmaking, I learned making Toxic Avenger. That's another really great book. And even if you're not a fan of trauma, like I think it helps to be a fan. They're just really good, interesting books about the process and how to do it with no money. Highly recommend it. Yeah, I love that book.
That's what got me going, man. After I watched, there's actually a DVD you could watch. I read the book and actually got the DVD from the library.
What's the DVD? Is he just like talking about his process, or?
Yeah, it's
fun.
great. Yeah, it's fun because he's great. I've met Lloyd, at a convention. He's great,
Oh yeah, he's the character for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's so fun. Oh, he's great. But yeah, so that's so then I wrote my first script, which was Hell Week. We shot it like on a handy cam back in 2004. And then the following year, revamped the script, and I got with some people, and we did a casting call. We got a little bit of money behind us. And then we went and shot the current version that's going to be coming out any day here on Tubi. Which awesome. Made it my first film, and this isn't a flex or anything, but my first film, it came out on Netflix on DVD back in 2010. Now, granted, back in 2010, it was much, much, much easier to get on Netflix,
Yeah, for an indie now, it's almost impossible. As once they started making their own productions, they don't really care about indies anymore unless it's something really has a ton of money behind it. Like it's nearly impossible, unfortunately. But yeah, that's exciting though. I mean, it's a big deal.
And the movie got trashed, and I actually talked to the vice president back then. It was so easy to talk to him on the phone back in 2010 because they were so much smaller. And he's like, Eddie, we love your film because it gets trashed. We can't keep it in stock. People want to see it just to see if it really is that bad.
I mean, the Netflix was the Wild West in 2010. I think like really anyone could have got a film on there because some of the films they had were bad. I'm positive that your film has to be a lot better than some of the things that were released. I think some people were shooting films with their phone at the time, which was probably like an iPhone 1 or
It wasn't
2
a
or
good
something
phone.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was pretty bad, but that's awesome that you had the chance to get your film onto Netflix and have them send out the DVDs. I'm trying to think back if it landed in my pile. I used to have a tremendous queue on Netflix, and I think I had the maximum, which I think they would send 3 at a time. But I got so bad at returning them that they got real slow at sending them to me.
I still think I have a few Netflix DVDs that I never returned. So
That was the coolest thing though, like knowing they were sending out the DVDs of my movie. I was like, it was so cool. And then we get a phone call or an email saying they want to pick up the streaming rights. So they bought the DVD rights and then they wanted the streaming rights. So it was really cool, kind of like a double win for us, you know. We definitely made more money off the DVDs.
It's good, man. Start with a bang. That's fantastic. So, Eddie, what are your some of your influences, or did you get into horror strictly just to kind of like up your ass level? Because that's you said your girl got you into it. So was it all for some ass, or
yeah.
do you have a love for horror films and what were some of your influences? What inspires you? If you could
Well,
kind of
it's
fill.
funny because when I met her in 2002, I still liked horror, I
Okay.
still did, but I was like, I also liked a bunch of other stuff too, comedies, and she was a straight up horror girl. She turned me on to People Under the Stairs, she turned me on to Pin. What's that movie? That Pin.
With Anthony Hopkins, was that? No, no, though. I know the movie you're talking about. It's about a dummy, though, right? A doll.
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. That movie's creepy as hell.
Isn't it? So great. Like stuff like that, she turned me on, like the People Under the Stairs. What else? I mean, there's so many films I'd never heard of that she got turned me on to. So yeah, it might have been a little bit of that ass factor.
Hey man, I
No,
do a
it
lot
was
of
how
things for that, and I think that's why
you know,
Rich makes films. So
but no, but I just always, and she kind of rekindled my love for the genre. You know what I mean? After watching those films like her, like Chainsaw, like she was like really in the Chainsaw and The Exorcist, all the Jasons. So yeah, my influences were all those guys, Tobe Hooper, the standards, Carpenter. I love Carpenter. That first Halloween, even though it's not bloody, you know what I mean? There's very little blood in that film.
Yeah, same thing with Texas Chainsaw. There's no blood in that movie either, and it doesn't need it. It's effective
it's
without it.
brutal. It's still brutal. Yeah, that's a great foundation. I mean, if anyone wants to check out some of your films, I think they would be able to see see that represented in there. That slashers are definitely like the foundation to some of your filmmaking. So if I'm a new person, I'm a brand new person. I don't know you, Eddie. I don't know your company. Where should I start? Which film of yours should I start to really get a sense of what you're all about?
Oh, gee. That's a tough one, because my first love is my first film is Hell Week, because what we did, the Netflix version, we took that and we remastered it, and it's coming out now any day on Tubi, and it's the director's cut. It was supposed to come out in 2020, but it got pushed through distribution. We lost distribution. Now we have a new distributor. It's ITN Films. Winnie the Pooh people.
That's Stewart.
Yes. Oh, you know Stu?
Yeah, well, I mean, I worked with him back in the day, but yeah, I don't really know him well, but I know who that
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, yes. So they picked it up because we lost distribution. Stu's like, yeah, I'll take it. And so now we're just waiting. It got delivered to Tubi. We're just waiting for them to put it back up on YouTube. Our Tubi, right? It's like the director's cut. It's the film I always wanted to make, and we put like deleted scenes back in. We cut things out, and Mick Kuntz is my editor. He has this thing called AI, and he was able to upres the standard definition to high def, and it's really brought the film to a new life. And we did a new score
Oh
and
wow.
all new bands. Yeah, so it's like almost like a whole new film. The artwork's new and everything. So, and it got terrible reviews. Like I said, the first version, this new version, I sent it out to some people and they love it. They're loving it. So it's so cool because it was like a 2-year process to redo that film because it was during COVID, you know? So I'd want to say that, but it's very raunchy. it's definitely not
I mean, we
politically
like that.
correct. You know what I mean? It's, you know, it's just it's yeah, it's so I don't know if that's the way to start. You know, Ratchet, right? But Curse of Lilith, Ratchet, that got a 9 out of 10 from Horror Society. The only 2 films ever get 9s out of 10 for me was Ratchet and Byte from Horror Society. Everyone loves Ratchet. If you start there, I guess you're kind of starting at the top, and then everything else is going to kind of be, you know,
Always
what I mean?
start at the top. Always give them the best one first.
Give them the best.
Yeah.
That's it.
So what's Ratchet about? I haven't seen it.
The American Poltergeist, The Curse of Lilith Ratchet. It's a poltergeist. And people love her. She is creepy. Lilith is creepy. If you pull up the trailer, you can see she's pretty creepy. And ITN has that film. All my films are with ITN now, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like you do a lot of stuff with creatures or like some kind of monster or so is like are those the kind of stories that you're most interested in telling, I guess, or is it because you just love how like the makeup and effects look? Because I know Byte in particular, it's like a lot of practical effects and things like that, which is great. Just wondering kind of when you're thinking of your ideas, like do you like to have the creature in your head first and then write around it, or how does your process work?
Well, like Hell Week was a fraternity hazing movie with the psycho crazy family. My whole idea with that was it was supposed to be the first half of the film was comedic, like American Pie meets Texas Chainsaw. And so many of the critics are saying that. They're like, the lead guy, Rob Yeager, played JJ. And they're like, this guy is Stifler. And that was exactly what I was going for. But the fans did not dig it back then because it was like supposed to be American Pie meets Chainsaw. So once we got into the warehouse, we flipped the script and everything was supposed to get scary, but it was still real comedic. Like the lead guy in the warehouse, the daddy, we call him Daddy. It was comedic. It was just funny, you know. And the late Robin Griggs was in that movie. And she was great, but there was a comedic twist to her too. You know what I mean? So no one took it serious. But now, fast forward 15 years later, people are loving the character of JJ. It's so weird how the audience back then hated it, and now they're loving it. I don't know what happened. Isn't that strange though?
You were just ahead of your
We're ready.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't ready.
I mean, there's so many movies, right? They come out. I mean, look, like Blade Runner bombed when it came out, and then it just, you know, grew a cult fan base. Like so many movies are like that, where people it just wasn't the right time for it to come out, and you know, and then you look at it like 10 years later, 15 years later, even a couple of years later sometimes, and you see it through different eyes. So yeah, that happens a lot, right? Like where these films build these like cult fan bases that like did not do well. We're going to talk about a movie later, Ginger Snaps, that is like the same thing. It came out and it kind of bombed, and then gradually built like a fan base, and then ended up making sequels because it started working. So that, yeah, it happens.
Ironically, you brought up Ginger Snaps. Big influence on me for Byte. I'm a huge Ginger Snaps fan. And matter of fact, the girlfriend turned me on to that, you know, back in the day. Yeah, we were big fans. Oh my gosh. I didn't know it bombed. Did it really bomb?
Yeah, and I think it was hard to release too at the time because it was very close to the Columbine massacre. So any movie with violence and teenagers was kind of looked down upon. So it just came out at the wrong time, and you know they pulled a lot of the marketing dollars behind it because they didn't want to promote this movie that could potentially make kids do violent acts. So yeah, but I definitely saw that influence in Byte. Again, it was doesn't have like the same feel of it, but I could definitely tell that was the movie that was near and dear to your heart by making this one. So I definitely got that.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. You're the first person to say that though. That's great.
I mean, I think that's a pretty good segue to probably get into Byte. But before we do that, Eddie, do you just want to let the people out there know what you're working on right now? You mentioned something about a 9th film. So if you want to mention what that may be about, if you can release that information, and maybe also mention how people could find or contact you if they're interested. And then we'll just dive into to Byte.
Yeah, unfortunately, the 9th one that I'm working right now, I can't because it's I just tell you this, it's a public domain movie.
Ooh.
So yeah, I'm jumping on that bandwagon. I mean, you know, but I don't want to give it away which public domain I'm doing.
There's probably 3 that I
can think of a few, but I'm not going to yell any out because we don't want to put you on the spot. So we'll definitely be looking out for that. So if someone wants to contact you, talk about films, they want to ask you some questions, be in one of your films, what should they do? How should they find you? How should they contact you?
Well, we have the website is frighttechpictures.com. I don't know if you've seen the website.
I did, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of all the films are on there. I think there's a contact page on that, or just Instagram. Eddie Fright. Are you Eddie Fright or Fright Tech Pictures? I have two Instagrams. Facebook. We have a Fright Tech page as well. But we also are working on. I can talk about this. The 10th film is coming right after the public domain.
Tell us about that.
The 10th film we'll be shooting like in November, and it's called the Yule Monster. It's the Yule Monster.
I don't know what that is. What's a Yule monster?
Yeah, I don't want to tell you because I don't want to give it away. Yeah, but it's something to do with Christmas. You know, the Yule log, the Yuletide.
Okay.
It's not
I'm feeling
Krampus.
that.
It's not Krampus. It's the Yule monster. It's a little bit of gangsters meets monster. You know, teenage rock band. So that script's already been written, and we're just waiting for the fall, late fall, like a winter time to shoot that.
And then was the goal to have that out for next Christmas?
Yeah, it has to be Christmas 25. Yeah.
All right. Well, we do a Christmas episode, so we'll keep it in mind when we get to 2025 if we survive.
Yeah. I love Christmas horror. I don't know about you guys. I love Christmas.
Love
Do
it.
you? And it's growing, isn't it? Like I think the genre is growing.
I think holiday horror is doing great. I mean, last year, Joe Bagos had a Christmas Bloody Christmas, which I think was such a fantastic film for such a low budget, but it was a lot of fun. It really gave you like that Christmas nostalgia feel, but a ton of blood. So I mean, yeah, Christmas could be a lot of fun and a lot of blood. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So we're looking forward to checking out your next film with the Yule monster, which I'm pretty excited about that. So
actually, really quick, so Eddie, what would be your favorite Christmas horror film before we kind of move on?
You know, I'm kind of a purist with that. I hate to say it, Black Christmas is like I really love that movie, even though
awesome film.
The original one, the 70s, the remake was okay, but there's just something about that first one that just I vibe with it.
One of the first POV kind of slasher movies, right? I mean, very classic.
So what do you guys think? Would be now a great time to kind of jump into Byte and start discussing that. What do you guys think?
let's talk Byte. So Eddie, just really quick for me, like why werewolves? What made you decide to do a werewolf movie?
You know what? Jeff Miller is the producer. Millman Productions. He did like the Russian Bride. He did the Axe Giants, Inoperable with Chris Hahn and the girl from Halloween. What's her name? Harris. Daniel Harris.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he did Clown Town. And he reached out to me and he's like, "Hey man, what about doing a werewolf movie?" I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "All right." And he's like, "How about werewolf programmers?" And I'm like, I don't know. And then he writes back a couple of days later, "How about a werewolf app that turns you into a werewolf?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay. That's kind of far out there, an app that turns you into a werewolf." And I'm like, "Well, it needs more though." And I'm an ex-pagan guy. I love paganism and messing with candle magic and stuff back in the day. So I'm like, well, how about if we, instead of just using the app on the phone, let's kind of incorporate some old school into it. So, I said, how about Jeff, we do a ritual under a full moon? And he's like, love it, write it. I'm like, okay. So that's how we kind of came up with the app. And then they order the werewolf's blood and then they do the ritual. So it makes it a little more believable when you're watching the film. If it was just the app, it's like, oh, come on. So that's how that started. It wasn't my idea, not really. Like I said, Jeff reached out to me because werewolf movies they're how it is. You know what I mean? Like you see one of these low budget films are kind of
it's tough to do something different or have a different take on it, right? Like we've seen it before. Whenever you go into these classic characters like a werewolf or a vampire, it's like we know the rules basically, but like how do you put a different spin on it and make it something that's current that we haven't seen before, right? That's like the trick.
Absolutely. So, Eddie, do you feel comfortable giving us the 1-minute plot summary of what Byte is all about?
A mysterious app that you download off the web.
It's perfect.
A ritual under a full moon. He supposedly has supernatural werewolf powers. There you go.
I mean, that's great. I'm going to elaborate a little bit. So we have about 4 friends hanging out, and they want to bring some excitement to like what looks like a chill party to me. So they download this app called Byte that has some supernatural powers. So Jet, who's played by Marshall Vargas, decides to get the app and order the required wolf's blood things get a little weird when the blood is delivered like 5 minutes later, which I thought was hysterical. But the group somehow ignores that, and they drive out to a cemetery during a full moon to perform the ritual. Within the next few days, there's a string of animal attacks, and after acting a bit strange, the group begin to suspect that Jet may be behind the killings, and maybe that the app is real. So to me, this was a very original plot. And I could tell you right now with this concept, and I know you said that this other guy thought about it, but if there was an app that could turn me into a werewolf, I would do it immediately. I just want you guys to know that right now.
You would go full wolf. You would do it.
I would love it. I would love it. It would be so much fun. And I think that's really, like what Jet was all about. He's like, it would be really freaking cool to be a werewolf, to be that powerful and to be that awesome. And I kind of feel the same way. Werewolves are cool, and I would do it.
That's awesome to hear that, because I wonder when I was writing it, like how many people would really do this?
One. I have this one.
That's awesome.
Come on. Awesome. Come on. Why not?
I mean, are there female werewolves around? Like, is it just us? Like, what happened?
All right. So I just want to say, I really like the way that this film starts off. Eddie, you started this film with a bang. That opening scene with Sarah, who is being chased. And at first, I think when that kind of rough looking guy shows up, you're thinking, all right, she's being chased by like this guy, and you assume that like he's the problem. But suddenly he's attacked by like this vicious beast, and like there's body parts flying all over the place, and there's blood spraying, and all of a sudden she's attacked. And it was like super gory and a lot of fun. And I just want to say, if you're going to start a film about a werewolf, that's the way to start it. I mean, I thought that was a great way to start it. Really set the tone.
Oh, awesome, man. Thanks. That was a lot of work. That was a lot of work. That scene. It really was. Because originally he wasn't supposed to be there. It was just supposed to be her going in. And then last minute, I'm like, man, that was the owner of the property, that big truck that you see in that opening scene. That's Donnie's truck. And I'm like, man, I think it needs something more. It needs that something more. So me and Mick went back and forth on it, and finally I convinced Mick into letting me do it. And I'm really glad we did, because he adds that, like, exactly. It gives you that illusion, like, oh, he's coming after her, the guy, Donnie.
Yeah. How long did it take you to shoot the entire movie? How many days?
17 days total.
And where'd you shoot it? What city? Like,
we're here in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, nice.
So we shot at the Cleveland Library. We shot at Chris Kay's bar out in Manaway. We shot at the Bedford Coffee Shop. We shot at a couple of friends' houses. Northeast Ohio. Where are you guys at?
I mean, I'm from New York. Rich is from LA. So we're on different coasts right now. And there were a lot of scenic kind of like Ohio shots, like with the skyline, the train, the library, the college from Kent, and all that stuff. Is that something you try to do with your films? You try to represent like Ohio? Is that like your thing, just to kind of give it some props, or is it just just an element of making the film?
I really didn't give it that much thought, but like, because we did that in Melonheads, which hasn't been released yet, and that takes place here in Kirtland, Ohio.
And were the actors all like local?
The lead girl, April, the girl that played April, Caden Bryce, she's from Michigan, Detroit, Michigan area. And other than that, everyone else was from here in Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, and I thought Caden Bryce did like this amazing job of really bringing that character to life, because for me, the film kind of started out one way where I feel like it was kind of like about Jet, and you feel like you're just going to kind of follow him and his transformation into becoming a werewolf. But then I would say around like that kind of like halfway point, the film really starts to develop, and it seems like that Caden Bryce really starts to take over, and she's turning into the heroine of the film, and what you'd call the final girl. It's funny how I start feeling that, because I'm like, we're just gonna watch this guy Jet, and he's gonna tear up a bunch of people, but in the background this character is really starting to like pick up little by little, and I think she did a great job just kind of like coming in and kind of like elevating like her character and her character status to kind of become the lead of the film. When to me, it didn't really seem like it was going that way. So I thought she did a great job.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's amazing. Her and her mom came down with her, Melinda, and they were just amazing people to work with. I loved having them on set. And Kaden, she just brings it. Every scene, she just brings it. And she brings everybody around her up. She commands a room. She really does. I mean, all the kids I think did great. I even like the kid that played Damon. I really love working with him, and Carly that played Nora. She was great. The chemistry between Nora and the April character, I love their chemistry. And that was her first movie, The Blonde, Carly. She killed it too, I thought.
So what movie were they watching when they were eating the Chipotle during that scene?
That's Hell Week.
Oh, it's Hell Week.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, because
I was wondering if it was
I was
one of your
really
movies.
interested. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was so interested. I'm like, man, what movie is this? I'm like, this looks really cool. I want to watch it. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's why we did that.
all right, everyone, check out
Yeah.
Hell Week because it looked like
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Get some Chipotle and
Yeah,
get back.
And the kid that played Jet, I gotta give a shout out to him, Marshall.
Marshall.
Amazing. His first, big lead role, in a feature film. He was 17.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
wow.
I thought he looked young, but I was like, no way.
He was amazing. He was amazing to work with. He brought it so hard every time he came, out to set. He was just so good, especially being 17 for your first film.
Yeah, and to have the lead, that's huge.
And he actually played the werewolf at times. They
I was
switched
just
off.
about to ask that. Who played? Did he also play the werewolf?
He played the werewolf, and it was mostly Stephen Knight, the guy that played Damon, the computer programmer kid. Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh,
And he was
okay.
amazing. He was amazing at playing the werewolf. He really was.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that. I mean, I definitely want to talk about the werewolf here. So, I mean, it's super easy to kind of get carried away with like the way, the werewolf is going to look, whether it's like with the makeup and prosthetics and things like that. And a lot of times when I watch any sort of films with werewolves, it looks like kind of like a greasy, oily kind of naked man kind of thing. But I thought you did a really good job, like maybe not going over the top with your vision of the werewolf, but making it, just enough where you knew like this was like a beast and it was scary. And when you saw it, normally it's a letdown. You're just like, oh man, that is not scary. I thought the werewolf was scary, and I thought in that scene where it attacks Professor Gray, and it's like running across the car and up the like driveway. I thought that was like super scary. So I thought you did a great job on the werewolf. So did you have any kind of like part in deciding like how this werewolf's going to look? Like who was the kind of like working on that?
No, it's kind of funny. I'm not sure how it all came about, but Frank Mamana is the guy that owns the suit. I think somehow I posted a picture of that suit of the werewolf, and that's Jeff Miller saw it and really took a liking to that costume. And he's like, Eddie, do you have access to that costume? I says, I think so. It's Frankie's. I'm sure he'd run it to us. So I reached out to Frank. He's like, yeah, I'll run it to you. So that's kind of how that came about. And if you look at that werewolf, it's not a traditional werewolf. Almost like some people have said, like kind of bat-like, which kind of worked in our favor because it's more like a hybrid werewolf. It's not the traditional howling type werewolf where you get bit. This is more like a concoction, of an app and drinking the blood. So I think it kind of lends itself to more of a hybrid type wolf. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought it was super cool, and the fact that it would just kind of like tear at you for a bit, and it was like completely gruesome, and it was like quick moving. I mean, there were a lot of really cool parts about the werewolf. I thought, when I was watching this film, when they're starting to suspect that Jet may be killing everyone, when April sees the werewolf kind of run in front of her car for that first time, she's not as freaked out as I thought that she would be. I didn't see the reaction like when there's like a wolf like running in front of your car. Is that because she kind of knew It was Jet, and
Yep.
there was kind of like that connection between them, and it was like they recognized each other. Is that what that was about? Because I was like, I'm like, I want to ask Eddie about this particular scene because honestly, if I saw a werewolf, I'm a shit myself, so I don't know what's gonna happen, But so was it a familiarity? Is that what it was?
Yeah, dude, that you're in my head. When I was writing that, I wanted to do something different. I knew it was kind of be a gamble because some people have kind of ripped on that, like a little bit. Like I would have been more scared, but I was hoping it gave like the feeling, like what you just said, like she recognizes, like they recognize each other.
I thought it was super interesting. And what it did is it kind of developed that relationship a little bit for me between like April and Jet because they kind of had like this unspoken kind of affection for each other. And it looks like, I don't know if there was a past between them or a possible future, but there's definitely something going on. And I'm like, man, what do you do when your potential boyfriend is a werewolf killing all
Yeah,
your friends
right.
and and you see it. So yeah, I think you did well kind of capturing that reaction where she was like confused but also felt like she recognized him. So I thought you did a really good job with that, and I actually liked it because I was like, yeah, I'm like, this is an interesting take because I would have crashed the car totally.
Yeah, that's great that you picked up on that. That's awesome. I love when people can kind of get some of my little weirdness that I do in these films, like they pick up on it, That's great.
So one thing I had to ask, there's one question I have, it's burning in my mind, is
Oh,
what happened to Franz the cat? Are they
Oh
okay?
no.
Is the cat okay? I love that you put a black cat in the movie, like a big fan of
Yeah, we
black
both
cat.
have black cats, Eddie, and as soon as we see a cat in a movie, we half of us are happy. The other half is like, I hope nothing happens to this cat. So
So just tell me to make me feel comfortable. Franz the cat is okay.
oh yes. Oh my God.
I know he became dinner in the movie, but
No. That's the camera guy. That's Mick, our camera guy editor. That's his cat, Salem.
oh, nice.
Yeah. And I remember when Jeff read the script, he was like, Eddie, how are you going to do that with the cat? We'll figure it out. you know. And Mick is that guy. He is. I always call Mick. He's the Woz of indie film. Steve Jobs and Woz from Apple. And Mick is that guy. I have a task for Mick, and like Mick will find a way to get it done. And so Mick actually filmed that. I wasn't there when he did it, and he got the cat to come out. Like Mick, like the cat is. It's almost like he's taking direction. You watch it.
Yeah, no,
He
he's
comes
good. The
out.
cat's really good. He's putting on a performance, and I know how hard it is. I tried to get my own cat in one of my films, and it was impossible. He was not having it. Like he did not want to be on screen. He ran out of the room.
Yeah. So the fact that Mick was able to do that, it was crazy. And we actually had the neck break. There was a neck break in there, but Jeff's like, too
to
much.
turn off
Yeah.
Oh
people.
my God.
Yeah, definitely.
I,
And he
I'll be
started.
honest, I would have turned it off if that. I can't watch things like that.
Yeah, so you made the right choice again. So that was a good burning question, Rich. And I have one too. I have one too, Eddie. So since Rich asked this, I guess I'll ask mine. And I don't know if it's as serious as Rich's was, but I saw this film and I also saw St. Patrick's Day, and I noticed something. So we have Sarah in the beginning of this film. We have Katie, who was one of the first people that was attacked at the train station, and then I saw a few of the women from St. Patrick's Day, and these women all have a look, and I just want to know what the deal is with goth girls in your films. So, definitely our taste. So, is that a look that you go after for your films, or is it just that's the actor that walked in, or is that the style? Is that a preference of yours? I guess is what I want to ask.
I don't know. Like now, definitely Lucy Fire. She played Katie Monroe in
Mhm.
Byte. We definitely wanted that character. We wanted to be gothic for sure, 100%. Nora was supposed to be goth, like Wednesday Adams goth, right? We could not find anyone to play that role that looked like that. So we found Carly, and I really like Carly's audition. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just change it. It's just easier. We'll we'll change it and make her the girl next door as opposed to the goth girl. That's kind of how that happened. But yeah, Nora was supposed to be super goth, like Wednesday Addams goth.
Yeah. So we knew it. That's your style. That's okay, man. That's okay. We're with you. We're with you the whole way. So yeah, I want to move down a little bit here. So one of my favorite parts of this particular film is when Tracy is attacked when she's waiting for the Uber driver, and the Uber driver, instead of helping or trying to get away, is just live streaming the whole event. And I thought that was just so in touch of, like, like what's going on right now, because honestly, I think I'd be a little conflicted myself. I'm like, this is pretty awesome. There's a werewolf in front of my car attacking someone. I should get away. I should help. But you know what? Maybe I'll get some likes instead. So I think that was like really on point and very modern. So I hate when people ignore technology, and I like how you kind of embraced it there.
We kind of rolled the dice on that. I remember we were filming that, and it was like, oh no, do we dare go here? Do we do it? And we're like, you know what? Screw it. Let's do it. And it's really not supposed to be funny, but it's funny because she's getting mauled and he's filming it, like you said, live streaming it. Like, very today, right?
I mean, yeah, I think there was a lot of that dark humor kind of in this film, or maybe it's just like our twisted kind of morbid way of thinking, but I definitely think there was some like points of humor in this film. So yeah, it fit right in, and I definitely found myself like kind of laughing out loud during that scene, and I think I probably like rewound it and watched it again because it was just so funny to me. I'm like, I'll fucking do that too. So it's pretty...
if you go back and watch it, I probably shouldn't say this, but if you go back and watch it while he's mauling her, if you look behind the sun, the sky is actually, it's about to hit daybreak, because we had to wait until like about 10 o'clock at night to film it. So we only had a short window. We had like from 10 at night to 5 in the morning to do those death scenes, both girls. And
Wow.
It takes a long time, Rich, to film death scenes,
Oh yeah.
especially practical stuff that we were doing. That actress Tracy, like, there was like 3 takes where we had to wipe her down, you know what I mean? Get all the blood off her and then do it again and then wipe her down again. And then,
2 hours to set that up easily. Yeah.
But if you look, the sky is about to turn a little bit brighter. We actually kind of had to do some post-production on that to darken it. Yeah. But like Mick, the camera's like, dude, we don't have much more time. We're about to get daylight. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Racing against the clock. It's always the way it goes.
I mean, that's awesome, Eddie. And thank you for kind of pulling back the curtains a little bit and telling us how like a lot of, these scenes were created and what was going on in the background. I think that's very interesting for people who are not in the industry to kind of understand that. And maybe, they're interested in making a film and they could kind of like work off some of what they're hearing from you. So I think that's really cool that you could, tell us how these are done and what you were up against. So thanks for that. Appreciate it. So I think as we move into this story a little bit more, getting into like those final scenes, we end up at Raider's house, and I think the whole film kind of was building up of who Raider is, who this strange man is, man of mystery who invented this app, and I gotta say, when I saw Raider, I thought I was probably gonna be like let down, but then it's like this weird kind of like creepy scientist looking guy, and he definitely didn't let me down. He looks like somebody who invented this exact app and was sending blood out to people by Amazon. So I thought that was like that was really cool. And I think kind of adding his backstory into to add some context to the film and really why all this was happening, I thought that added a lot to the film. And maybe if you were a little skeptical, like towards the beginning of the film, and like, oh, why would someone do this? Why is this going on? I think his story, which is basically, for anyone who's interested, his son had cancer and he had discovered a cure, but the side effect was a pretty bad one. He would turn to werewolf, and the townspeople basically hunted him down and killed his son, and that basically caused this doctor's wife to kill herself as well. And this doctor, scientist Raider, kind of went mad and went on like a kind of a revenge kind of tactic and created this app and was just kind of mad at society for everything that happened to him. And honestly, I mean, to tie that into already this crazy kind of concept of an app that turns people into werewolves, I thought that was fantastic. I mean, where did that come in? Was that always there from the beginning, or did you just kind of get to that point where you're like, we need this to kind of make sense? Or was it kind of always there from the beginning?
When I wrote the script, I didn't know how it was going to end. We had the outline,
I
you
get
know,
it.
so we had the outline, and I kind of went off the outline. But then when we got towards there, it just, when I write, it's weird. It's like the spirit kind of comes through me, and it just kind of comes to life, right? And yeah, I think we needed to explain, like, why. Is that what you're saying? Like,
Yeah,
why?
exactly. Yes.
Yeah, we had to give a valid reason to make it believable.
Yeah, no, I totally believed it too. I was like, yeah, man, this guy's like, fuck the world at this point. He's mad. He made this app to turn people into werewolves. I thought it was a great tie-in.
But he also says in the line that he wanted to give people a choice because I want people to live. He
Mm.
wants to get revenge, but he also says he kind of wants to help people, give them the choice. Like, hey, you're dying, take this antidote. The only problem is you have to bark at the moon for 3 days, you know?
I mean, Jerry
Once
said
again, I'm
he'd
in.
take it with regardless. Yeah. Like, his choice has been made.
Yeah, I thought that was great, and basically the way that you wrapped up the film, where Raider was killed, but it's too late. Too many people downloaded the app, and there's now like a werewolf global epidemic going on, and I thought that was like really cool. It kind of had like that Night of the Living Dead kind of feel to it, where it's like, uh-oh, this is just the beginning of something, and we don't know how far it's going to go and how crazy or how it's going to end. So I thought that was pretty cool that you didn't let it just die with the with Raider dying, and that there is the potential for more werewolf films. So I thought that was very
Mhm.
cool.
Circling back to Raider, it's funny because we had a certain actor that was originally cast for Raider, but then he walked, and then we had to restart the searching process all over again. And it's funny, like, Steve Jobs, I hate to keep bringing up Steve, but he said, when you look back at something, you can connect the dots. But when it's happening, you're like, oh no, the sky's falling. When that certain actor left, we're like, oh shoot, now we have to try to go find, Raider, right? But looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened because Raider, the guy that we have, Bill Schroeder, was amazing. Like, hands down. There were three candidates, and he was like the one that I knew from the get-go, this is the guy. He had the size, he has that voice, he has that look. It's not what you expect, right? When you see him. Yeah, I love Bill. Bill was great, great, great guy to work with. He was so awesome.
Yeah, I thought he did a great job. And I guess, I know Rich knows about that. When someone drops out from the cast, then you have to recast how stressful that could be. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Happens way too often, unfortunately.
You know what? You have to trust in the plan. You have to trust in something higher than yourself, something greater than you is kind of guiding the ship, right? And you have to try, like I said, you can't, at the time, it's like, oh no. But then you look back and connect the dots, and you're like, oh yeah, thank God that happened.
I think it's happened to me 4 times where someone dropped out last minute and had to recast. 3 of the times, the person I found was way better and made a completely better movie, like you said. The one time that they were not as good ruined the entire movie. So it happens, but yeah, a lot of the time it's a blessing that it all works out in the end, right?
I don't want to be a spoiler, but the slow motion kill with Raider. Did you
Yeah.
like that? That was in post. That was done in post. I said to Mick, Mick, slow it down when she's stabbing. We're kind of spoiling it right now. And Mick's like, yeah. I said, he goes, we wasn't shot for that. I said, I know. I just got a feeling. I just got a hunch. After doing this so long, you get certain hunches on things like what's going to work and what's not. And when he slowed that down, I don't know. For me, it's just that moment when she's stabbing him and that slow mo and the screaming, and it's just
She was like wild. You could tell like she totally just like lost it, and she was just going nuts. And I mean that slow-mo, it reminded me of a lot of things. Reminded me a little bit of Psycho a little bit with that scene. But then at the same time, I was like, man, this character has lost everything, and she's ready to just like murder someone. And it was gruesome. It made it for a lot more gruesome than probably if it was in real time. So yeah, I like that a lot. The one thing that I thought was Jet's kill. It wasn't as epic as I thought it was going to be. And I was kind of hoping for him, being that he was like such a huge character, that it was like this big climactic moment. Can you explain a little bit what was going on there? Like when Jet meets his fate. And you can say budget.
Yeah.
You can say budget. You can say whatever you want.
Well, there was a little bit of A, a little bit of B. We were shooting at this place called, have you heard of the movie called The Bye Bye Man?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it. I know the poster.
Yeah,
I've
it's a
come
couple
across it.
years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's a few years old, Bye Bye Man. And we shot at that house where they shot the Bye Bye Man movie, and it was very expensive to rent that per day. So we only had it for 2 days to shoot that ending. And it was the timing, it was timing, it was money. We could have used a third day, I don't want to blame it on, budget and, it was just more timing, we just ran out of time and we had to get it. And that's where we at. Yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of him being such an epic character to go out like that. Yeah.
I mean, this explains a lot to anyone who's like, viewing your movies, though, being a part of the process and understanding like what you're going through and some of the issues that you face, that, being like an independent filmmaker, you can't always make the exact film that you want, and every scene isn't the way it's going to be. I mean, I speak to Rich all the time, and I hear all of his trials and tribulations that he goes through, and there's a lot of like kind of give and take. And I think A+ on slowing down Raiders kill, and you had to put the money where it went. If that was the epic one, then that's the way to go. So
Yeah.
not a problem, what I'm saying? Because towards the end, I wouldn't say Jet was, the main character. It really became a battle, between April and Nora and Raider. So I thought it ended well.
Yeah, and look, that's how it goes, right? On these movies, these independent movies, there's only so much. Not every scene's going to be perfect. You're not going to get everything you want. You're going to run out of time. You're going to run out of that's just how it goes, man. Like you think things are going to be quicker than they are, and then before you know it, it's like this thing that you thought would take 1 hour takes 8, and you just can't get it all. You can't get it. And like I said, someone asked me recently, like I was talking about a movie I just wrapped recently, and I was saying that there's like certain scenes that are just completely fucked. Like, unfortunately, like we didn't have time to get the lighting right or the sound right. And they're like, well, why don't you just go reshoot it? And I'm like, because then I got to rent the location again. I got to hire all these people back. It's like, you're talking about spending thousands of dollars just to get this one scene. I'm like, I'm just going to live with it. I'm either going to cut the scene or I'm just going to be like, this scene sucks. Like, I can't go back. Like, it's out of the money. You have a finite budget to do everything. And once that's done, that you can't go back to the producers and be like, I need this, I need that. I know there's always stories in Hollywood about blah, 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 I did that. But like most of the time they're going to be like, it's like, you're done. Like, it is what it is. Like,
It's funny, Jerry, you brought that up because in the script, it takes place in a long hallway and there's actually a fight. There's like a battle, We thought about going back upstairs to that hallway and going down to the end of the hallway and trying to do it's a big fight scene that needed to be choreographed. We just couldn't, Rich,
yeah,
just,
I get it. Completely get it. Yeah. You got to make it work. You got to, at the end of the day though, you made the movie, right? It's like, that's all that matters is you make the movie, and nothing's ever going to be exactly how you wanted it on script. It's just certain things you just can't get to.
It's funny because we had to have insurance for this, and we got the insurance. It was like 1,600, and then I only had it for a certain amount of days because we thought we were going to be done, and then we actually had to go back to the graveyard scene where they're doing the ritual. I felt like after watching the dailies, I'm like, man, it needs more. It needs more coverage. So we're going to go back there, and like the city of Solon's like, well, you need that insurance. Do you still have your insurance? I'm like, no, it lapsed. So I called the insurance company. They're like, if you would have called us 2 days ago, we could have did something. We could have extended it, but we can't. Cost me another like $450,
Man,
for that insurance just to go back and get that pickup. And like you're saying, Rich, I mean, sometimes is the juice worth the squeeze? You know what I mean? But for that, it was because that's how we got all the hand cutting. When they're cutting the hand to do the ritual, and then when April's throwing up, we just got all those close-ups, so we didn't have that the first time we did it. So for me, it was worth the $500 to get that coverage.
It's funny you say that
Yeah.
too, because like you say that like $500, and if you tell this to someone who's not a filmmaker, they'd be like, "Oh, why didn't you just get $500?" Like people don't realize like it's like there's money on top of money on top of money on top of money, and like you just can't find another 500. I had this recently. We were trying to hire like a makeup artist, and literally they wanted like another $200 for like the shoot, and like, $200, like no big deal. But it's like, am I gonna pay that out of my pocket? Like I'm already paying for like this prop that I really want that they wouldn't pay for. It's like you can't just keep like spending money because you just can't do it. So like sometimes again,
Yeah.
it's you could find, all right, this is the one thing I'm gonna drop my own cash on, or this is the one thing I could convince them to give me more money on. But it's like $500 ends up being a lot of money when it comes to budgeting out a movie. It just is, there's no extra money. It's like that's it. This is it. Because the movie's only going to make so much, right? So it's like maybe that $500 is like the difference between being profitable or not. It's like you just gotta pick your battles, man. But people don't get it, unfortunately.
If we could get a million guys like you that really enjoyed the film to watch this, we'd be doing really good.
Yeah, so just to wrap everything up, Eddie, and thank you again for your time. It was really great to meet you and kind of talk through the process and learn more about you in these films. Where can people find Byte? Like where do you want people to watch it?
Well, we've been pushing Tubi, but ITN just picked it up as well. Not an exclusive deal, but ITN is going to be streaming it too on sites. But like right now, like we're pushing Tubi. That's what I keep telling people: Tubi, Tubi, Tubi.
Yeah, that's where these movies perform the best. That's what I see anyway. I tell people to watch my films on Tubi. That's where you're going to get the most return for indie movies like this, for sure.
And Sluaw was the second most watched ITN film on Tubi for a while. So that was pretty cool.
That is because they have like probably thousands of films, right? They have a lot of content.
Yeah, they do. They really do. But yeah, like Stu was really excited. He's like, they love it. They love it. It's second most watched film. Like, awesome.
So again, thank you again, Eddie, for coming on. I hope a million people do watch this movie and check it out, so you can kind of get more budget for the next couple. And really excited to see Hell Week when that drops, the new director's cut when that comes out any day now.
And check out Ratchet. You guys might like it. If you like Ghost, it's kind of a slow burn though. It's kind of, and if you're looking for some blood and guts and a little TNA, Scarred.
Always looking for TNA.
Yeah, seriously. I'm looking right now.
Yeah. Ari Lehman's in that movie. The guy from Friday the 13th, the original Jason.
Yes.
Yeah, Ari's in Scarred. He's so fun. He's so much fun. He was great.
Yeah, Eddie, we really appreciate you coming on the show. You're a wealth of knowledge. You pulled back the curtains of making independent films. We had a lovely time with you. We had a lot of fun. We're going to let you go, but we're going to make you promise to come back on the show and maybe around St. Patrick's Day, and we could talk about Slow. And maybe one of your new films will be out as well. And we could talk about that. What do you think about that? If you say yes, we'll sign off. And if you say no, we're going to keep you on.
Yeah, buddy. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Man, looking forward
awesome. That's great. Thank you so much. So just, one last take on it. How should people get in touch with you and find your films and whatever you'd like to let the world know right now? Just send it out to them.
We can always check out the website, FrightTechPictures.com. And then we have Fright Tech Pictures, the Facebook page, and then Fright Tech Pictures Instagram.
That's awesome. We look forward to that. So thanks a lot, Eddie. Everyone check out Byte, check out his other films. I think you really like them. If you're into some gory horror films, some slow burns, some holiday horrors, I think you're going to find one that's just for you. So check them out. And thanks a lot, Eddie.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, cool. That was Eddie Lengyel. Look out for Byte on Tubi. So we're going to talk about two more werewolf films. And look, I'll be honest, like werewolf movies just aren't really my thing. There's not a ton that I really like. It's not a genre I watch. But one thing I was thinking about when I was trying to think of like, are there werewolf movies I like? And I was Googling different werewolf movies. And one thing I like noticed was most werewolf movies do have wolf or werewolf in the title. Like it's very obvious that they're werewolf movies. And I was like, that's interesting. And then I was thinking about vampire movies, and it's kind of the same thing, right? Where vampire movies all have a very similar kind of title where you kind of know it's a vampire movie. And then I was looking at zombie movies, same thing. It's always zombie or dead is in the title. So I came up with a drinking game for you.
What you?
I'm stealing your thunder here. And the drinking game is it a werewolf movie? Is it a vampire movie? Or is it a zombie movie? Now, how
my
it's going to
God.
work, because you have a 30% chance to get it right. If you get it wrong, you take a sip. If you get it right, I take 2 sips because you have a 30% chance, right? So it's like more fair. The odds are not in your favor here. And some of these
Wow.
movies you might not have heard of. Some of them maybe you have. So a lot of it just might be guessing, but we're going to have some fun. And unfortunately, like, I didn't know about the secret drinking game you had with Eddie because I am really hammered because he did say werewolf and film an awful lot. And I blew through my trade water, and now I'm onto the very disgusting creek water. But I did have this drinking game planned, and we're gonna play it. So are you ready?
Yeah, I mean, if any of the listeners could see my face right now, it's pretty red, and that's because I'm wasted, dude. And yeah, the secret drinking game was a lot of fun. I think Eddie said werewolf and film like 3 times in a row, and
Yes. Oh my
I
God.
couldn't even like get the sip down quick enough before he was done. So I'm pretty wasted, but I am prepared for a rich original drinking game and to talk about these 2 films. But I think after I play this game,
We're not gonna be talking. We're gonna be slurring about these 2 films.
we'll see how the 2 films go. So yes, I am ready. Let's do it. And
Okay.
this is not my genre for anyone who's playing along with us. And if you're betting on me, I'm gonna preface this by saying werewolves, vampires are not my genre. Maybe zombie films. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and usually, as our listeners know, when Jerry creates a drinking game, it usually fucks him. Let's see how this does for me. So I'm gonna get right into it. So is it a werewolf movie, a vampire movie, or a zombie movie? First one, and I think I have 5. I think I have like 11, maybe.
Okay.
All right, Blood and Chocolate.
Oh my God. Vampire.
Wrong. Werewolf. Drink. All right, number 2, Byzantium.
Werewolf.
Vampire. Drink.
God.
Byzantium is a really good movie, actually. It's a different take on the vampire that you probably haven't seen before. I recommend it.
Definitely not a movie I've seen.
Yeah, it's worth watching. Okay.
I'm 0 for 2.
Next, Bloodthirsty.
I mean, I have to say vampire, right?
I mean, you could say vampire, but you'd be wrong because it's werewolf.
It's a werewolf. Come
It's a
on.
werewolf. All right, so you're 0 for 3. All right, ready? The
God.
Girl with All the Gifts.
Girl with all the gifts. I'm scared. Vampire.
Zombie.
Fucking shit. God damn it. How is that a zombie movie? There's no dead. There's not dead in there. There's nothing. Oh my God.
All right, I'll give you an easy one. Warm Bodies.
That was a zombie.
Okay, yes, I will drink 2 for that. I'll give you a break.
That was a softball. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Love Bite.
I want to say vampire, but all right, I'm going vampire.
And you're gonna be wrong. It's werewolf.
God damn it.
This is fun. All right.
Bit.
Bit. Bit.
You know, I want to say vampire, but I'm probably wrong. So I'm gonna say werewolf. That's probably wrong.
Yep.
It's probably fucking zombie.
Nope, it's vampire.
Vampire. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Drink. Which again, when you look at the title Byte, B-Y-T-E, I would think vampire, right? But it's werewolf. So
Yeah,
all right.
you're
I have
right.
4 more.
God, I'm dying here.
The Hunger.
The Hunger. Vampire.
Correct. I drink 2.
Oh, thank God. Oh.
Unhuman.
Zombie?
Yes, zombie. I'll drink 2.
Yes. 2 in a row there. So right now I'm like, I have like 3 right and like 7 wrong. It's not going well. It's
All right.
not going well at all.
2 more. And this is a movie I actually really like. Livid. It's a French movie.
I'm going to say that is a vampire film.
Correct. Okay. So you're picking up steam in the final half. I will drink. All right. Last one. The Feeding.
The Feeding. I want to say vampire, but it's probably werewolf.
Damn. All right. Correct. Werewolf.
It's right.
Right. So all right. You fucked up in the first half. Second half,
right.
you came back.
Do you want to know what I did?
Whatever you thought it was, you did the opposite, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I did, because that was really my instinct. Just like when I play my drinking games, my instinct is usually wrong. So I just went against the opposite of what I thought it would be. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and I think we got some equal drinks in. So yeah, whew, brutal night tonight.
Yeah. So, but I think we will be saved because when we do our long-standing drinking game where we drink to our ratings, I have a feeling we're not going to rate these movies very high. So I think we front loaded this episode with the drinking, and I think now maybe we calm down, which is good because I realize I could barely get a sentence out now. So all right, so like let's talk about the movie
Wow, okay.
Howl, which is a British film from 2014. And the plot of this film is the bunch of people are on a train late at night. The train's in the middle of nowhere. Train ends up breaking down. People end up being kind of trapped on the train. They try to get off of it, and then they realize they're being hunted by werewolves, and they need to stay on the train to survive the night. And that is the plot of Howl. While I have never seen a movie with werewolves on a train, as kind of a newer concept. However, I have seen this movie before, right? It's survival horror. It's, a bunch of people who don't get along, who are going to argue the entire night over what to do. It's basically a Night of the Living Dead, right? Just on a train, just with zombies. We've seen this movie before. And I will say, I didn't hate this movie. I didn't love it either. Like, there are definitely good things about it. And I kind of, again, was getting into the concept of it. But again, I think when you have these survival horror type movies, I think it's difficult when you really don't give a shit about any of the characters. And
Mm.
maybe the main character was kind of likable, the nerdy kind of loser train conductor guy who like is trying to get with this one girl. But other than that, it was just a lot of people kind of arguing for 90 minutes. And it kind of gave me anxiety, to be completely honest with you, just like how much they were kind of like, just like, everybody's like, what's going on? What's happening? What's going on? What's happening? Get me off this train. I want to stay on this train. It was like a little much
A
for
lot of
me.
bickering,
There's
yeah.
a lot of bickering. And it just like, again, if I like was really invested in the characters, then maybe I could have tolerated it. But no, I will say though, like, again, there are good parts to it. Like some of the blood, like some of the gore effects were
Oh
really
yeah.
gross. Like there's this one person that gets their leg kind of bit by a werewolf, and it was just gnarly and nasty. But I don't know, what do you think about this movie?
There's two things that I love. And anyone who's been listening to the show for a long time, they're probably familiar with like those things by now. I love a stormy night. I love any films that take place on a stormy night, which this film did. And honestly, I like films that take place within the confines of a train. I'm into that. Like I'm a commuter myself. I'm on the train often, and I think about shit when I'm on the train 2 hours each way, and I always think about, man, this thing is like 15 feet wide, 100 feet long, man. If something popped off right now, what would I do? And I think when I see these stories that kind of involve that, they get me interested. So I was interested in this film based on the premise and the set. I think the English location kind of elevates it a little bit, probably makes it a little more better than what it really is, because like the acting, they all had accents and things like that. And I think that kind of covered up a lot of poor acting. Again, I kind of felt like in the middle of it. Yeah, it was filled with a lot of commuter annoying type people, but I think there was like a lot of funny things that maybe happened, and I think there was a lot of like cool kind of bloody gory things that happened too. So I'm like right down the middle. I think overall the film pulled off what it was trying to do, and there was like a lot of different elements, a lot of like little scenes that I liked. So I mean, it kind of tried to build some tension and stuff like that when we realized that the conductor was killed, and these people are essentially they're trapped. They're trapped in the woods. And what do you do? If no one else knows how to drive the train and they're being attacked by, at the time, is an unknown beast, what do you do? And I thought that was interesting. It did feel a lot like Night of the Living Dead. You're absolutely right there. I think I have a note something like that where they even try to fortify the train with like some bullshit like a seat or like a desk or something like that. They try to fortify it. It's like, man, that's not going to work against a werewolf. But yeah, I thought it was okay overall. I think it was all right. A few things that I thought was pretty funny is I like that soccer guy. Do you remember him?
Oh yeah, the one who gets caught in the toilet, right?
Yes, like
Yeah.
he's
He was
like
good comic
he's like
relief. He was funny.
yeah, he was pretty funny, and he's like this drunk guy, and he's like these dodgy kebabs gave me the shits, and like I mean, has anyone been in a situation like that on a train? That's a horror
That's
story right
scarier.
there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's
scarier than the
a
werewolves is having to shit on the train. That's
yeah.
like
That I mean, that's scarier. I
if you've been
mean,
on like, the New York train, the Long Island Railroad, I would not want to use that bathroom. So I know I
so
do not envy you for doing that commute every day.
I could tell a pretty funny quick story like right out of COVID when the trains they weren't really that packed yet. People were just starting to get back into commuting. I went to like an office happy hour, and at this happy hour I've drank quite a bit. I might have partaked in some drugs and I felt very nauseous when I was on my first train, so I had to take a subway as well. And I normally don't feel the motion of that, but for this time I did. By the time I got to my main train, which would be the train similar to the one in Howl, I started feeling pretty bad. I ended up taking a seat right by the bathroom, and within 5 minutes, I ran into that bathroom, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I threw up in that nasty toilet for like an hour straight, and I couldn't leave the bathroom because every time I stood up, I had to throw up again. So not only is a train bathroom the most disgusting thing in the world, my face was buried in there, and like we were still wearing the mask still from like COVID, and I had like pull it down, and like I'm gonna get so sick from
Uh,
like throwing up. And I mean it was nasty. So this guy, when he got pulled out of that when he got ripped out of the bathroom from the werewolf, I'm like, man, I don't know what's worse. I don't know if it would be thrown up
I'd rather
or
deal
being
with the
torn out
werewolf.
by a werewolf.
I'd rather deal with fighting the werewolf than dealing with anything in those bathrooms. So like I completely get
Oh,
that.
worse than a plane, worse than anything.
And
It
planes are
was
pretty
it
bad, but
was
yeah, the train because people
yeah
like homeless people live on the train, so it's like it's not a fun place to
that,
go.
and mostly everyone's drunk, and they just do whatever they got to do, but no one was getting in that bathroom that night. It was just like literally when I got out, people were surprised there was a person in there because I was in there for so long. But anyway, I thought that was just a pretty funny story. But yeah, I mean, getting a little bit more into this film, you spoke about like when Jenny got ripped up, and it was like her leg that kind of got like
Mm,
gnarled.
yeah, that was gross.
I th- yeah, that was nasty, and I like it. It's like that same trope, like in every like werewolf movie, where like the person's gonna turn,
Or
everyone knows
zombie
it, but
movie. It's like every
yeah,
zombie movie.
and everyone ignores it, like it's not gonna happen.
Drives
So
me
like,
crazy every time. Every time.
yeah, like she starts puking blood and puking her teeth out. Now, I don't know what her dental condition was, but I just feel like if you got attacked by a beast that kind of looked like a werewolf, and then you start puking blood and your teeth, you're probably going to turn into a werewolf. And everyone's like, no, no, she's good. She'll be fine. We just need to get her some help. Help? Yeah. What doctor do you go to for throwing up your teeth? Just can anyone let me know that? Because it's just a standard trope, and it annoys the hell out of me. It's like, nope, she's fine. She'll be okay. She just needs like some Vicodin and some water. She'll be all right.
And even
Bacitracin.
and even after she turns, right? It's like you always have, and again, you see this in every movie. The person turns, and they don't even look like the same person. They look like a fucking monster now, and they try to kill you, but you can't kill her. That's Jenny. Like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that's not Jenny. And I think that's the problem I have with this movie because again, it's not bad. It's like well done, I guess, but it's like I've seen this movie so many times before, and every time I see it, it pisses me off because maybe that's how people would be. I don't know, but I like to think that people are smarter than that, or have at least seen a zombie werewolf movie like before, where you realize that like it just drives me nuts. Like, and that's why I had a really hard time with this movie. It was like, okay, like somewhat of a newish concept. It's like it's well shot. Like it's like it's violent, there's gore, but I literally seen this movie before, and that gets hard. One thing I'll say that's interesting, I will say is I've never seen werewolves that looked like this before. And what I mean by that is like it almost looked like they were just like people in a skin suit. Like they didn't have
Yeah.
hair really, which I think would have helped because the skin suits looked pretty, I'm not gonna lie, it didn't look good. Like it didn't look like good effects. It looked bad. And I think if they would have put on some like hair or fur or something, it would have hid like that it was a prosthetic suit that people were wearing. And one thing I read is that they actually, so that they used prosthetic suits, but the legs were done in CGI, which
Oh,
might have been another reason why it just looked bad. And that's the
awkward.
thing that these movies get into. And we're gonna talk about the Do It Ginger Snaps too in a little bit. It's when they show the monster finally and the monster doesn't look good, it just the movie's over for me. Like once I saw these werewolves, like once I got on the
Which was like
train,
halfway through. Yeah.
yeah, once they get on the train and you see them, I was like, oh, like that just looks, it just looks bad. And like you gotta, I mean, I've never made a creature movie for this reason, but you gotta light it a certain way or you gotta shoot it a certain way. Like it doesn't, it looks too
Has
fake.
to
And
be scary.
it
Yeah.
wasn't. And sorry, go
Your
ahead.
jaw has to drop, I think. Like when you have like a creature feature, your jaw has to drop when you finally see whatever that is. If it's a giant beast, if it's a werewolf, it's a dragon, whatever it is, you need to go like this. Oh shit. But when I saw these werewolves, like I swear to God, I thought it was like an oily naked kind of Pete Steele from Typo Negative or like some sort of like wrestler Sasquatch kind of thing. And it wasn't scary. Like it was just like it was again, just like you said, it was like a letdown. And I think if they maybe dim the lighting a bit and if they played around with the angles, it
Yeah.
could have looked scary, but it looked like a long-haired man that was kind of like bulked up and naked.
In a rubber
Um,
suit. Like it looked fake. It looked
it
really
looked
fake.
oily. I
Yeah.
guess that kind of like they it looked like he was like wet, like he just was swimming or something like that. And I was like, that's not scary. What was happening to the people was scary. So yeah, when that guy got pulled out of the bathroom from the ceiling, that was pretty scary. And then there was that like kind of like that bitchy girl Nina who got pulled out the window.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh
that was awesome. Yeah, like that,
yeah,
like
that
you
that
did, yeah.
that was cool. And it's like, all right, man, these werewolves, they're going to be sick. And um it wasn't. And I mean, it's a letdown. And I know we just talked about it and previous there with talking about Byte, where I think where they went right is they never showed that fully lit kind of werewolf like in the daytime, I guess, and also, like just front on. And I think it makes it scary because you're just seeing angles. And I think like this, I don't know if it's the train that didn't allow them to get those angles, but
Maybe.
yeah,
Yeah. It was
yeah,
confined
it looked
space.
it looked weird. It just looked it was stupid. Like I honestly, I almost want to turn it off at that moment. It was so stupid when I saw the actual werewolf.
Yeah, and that's again that you don't need to show the monster. If it's not gonna look right, don't show it, like, they did shit like that with Jaws where they realized how fake the shark looked and they like tried to hide it as much as possible. And they they do show it at some point, but like they were gonna show the shark a lot more in the original version of the movie before they shot it, and then they realized like, ooh, this looks bad. Like we gotta hide this shit. So yeah, I think that was a big mistake. And unfortunately, like that kind of really ruined the movie and took me out of it. I will say, and I'm not going to give it away, but I did like the bleak ending. It was definitely not how I expected it to end, and I appreciate that. Very different kind of ending. And again, the movie, it's not bad. It's not bad if you really just want to watch something and not really care too much. Like you're not going to be mad at watching it. I'll never watch this again though. Like I don't need to. I'll just watch another similar movie. I also, again, I'm also not a fan of werewolves, so that helps. But again, I don't even know if these were really even, I guess they were werewolves, but they don't go into a lot of the lore of the werewolf. Like it's kind of like they're just these creatures that attack, and I'm assuming, and they turn people. So I guess they're werewolves, but there's not a lot of
So it's
time spent on like how do we kill a werewolf or what do we do? It's like, so of course it wasn't like a traditional werewolf movie. These basically the creatures in the movie could have been anything. It didn't even need to be werewolves. They could have just been monsters that infect people,
yeah,
right? It didn't need to be a werewolf. So maybe,
I think they're playing with the location a little bit, that the like like the woods and stuff like that. I think a lot of like werewolf films kind of take place like in like a dense woods and stuff like that. And of course, it was a full moon that night. What I did like about this film is there's a bunch. There's a
oh
bunch of
yeah, that was
werewolves.
cool. Yeah.
a lot of times when you watch like a werewolf film, like just kind of like thinking back to like say like the original, werewolf film, there's just one,
Yeah,
and
it's usually just
if
one.
yeah, and if something happens to it, if it dies or whatever's going on, that's it. It's kind of like the end of the movie and nothing happens. They actually do kill a werewolf in this movie. That nerdy guy Matt, he like axes down that first kind of beefy looking Pete Steele werewolf, and he like tears the hell out of that thing with like an axe. And I thought that was pretty cool. And like, well, now what? But there was a plenty of other werewolves to kind of come in, and you could tell that they might have been different. Like maybe some were male, some were female, some might have some were smaller, some were bigger. And I thought that was an interesting take on the werewolf, was to show multiple werewolves, and it was like a pack, so it was like kind of like wolves. And I thought that was interesting because I'm like, how are these people going to get out of this with all these wolves? They're probably not. So yeah, I thought that was interesting at least.
Yeah, and it was a nice reveal too, because it's like I feel like it was like the 45-minute mark they killed the werewolf, and I was like, okay, great, now what? Right? Like, what's gonna
Yeah.
happen? And I know they're already had infected somebody, so like I was like, okay, well that person's gonna turn. But yeah, it was a nice reveal when they step outside, and all of a sudden you see like 4 or 5 of them. It's like, oh shit. And now you're right, like they're like now they're doomed. Like that's it. But you know,
I like that. And that was scary when they went out and saw the other werewolves, and you kind of see like the eyes glowing, and you weren't seeing like this fully lit werewolf. They were just kind of dark and shadowy. And I think there was like one in a tree or something like that. I'm like, man, that's fucking scary. A werewolf could hang out in a tree. I guess I never thought about that, but
yeah.
that was definitely scary.
I think the last thing I think I really didn't like about this movie, because I do want to move on and get to our next film. There's maybe 6 or 7 people who are trapped in this train. The train is completely broken down. I believe at one point they noticed there's no fuel because the fuel tank was destroyed. But out of those 7 people, there just happens to be someone who knows how to drive a train, who isn't like a train employee. It's somebody who's going to school to be a train engineer, and he knows how to fix this train. Like it was like that, just like, come on.
Phoned it in. They phoned it in
Yeah,
on that
like
one,
really, like
huh?
out of
Yeah.
like I would guarantee if you put like 1,000 people in a room, none of them knows how to make a train work, or could put like there was no fuel. Like or like you can't, like, so it just happens that like out of these 7 people, one of them is like a train expert and he happened to be this like 20-year-old kid who's like I was like, come on, that was like just
Like,
silly.
come
Like
on, mate. I'll take care of that. Just
but you
hit
don't
that
you
button, push the
yeah, it was so silly. Like and it wasn't necessary. Just like leave the people trapped on the train then. Like especially the way the movie was going to end, like it didn't need to like all of a
Didn't have to
sudden
go.
work. Like
Yeah.
it was just kind of bad writing, and
It,
that bothered me a lot.
it didn't play into it a lot, and I'm on the train every single day, and I would say there's probably about 150 people in every car. There's about 10 cars. None of us know how to drive a fucking train. You know what I'm
Not only
saying?
drive a train, but like fix it.
Yeah,
Like, you know.
like if we could do it, we wouldn't be sitting in that shitty seat. We would be up front, kind of like in the conductor's booth driving that
Right?
shit.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you would have that ability and sit in a seat. So yeah, and plus taking like the red eyed of like
Oh
1
yeah,
a.m.
yeah. Like
to
who's on that
like
train?
what is he
What
doing?
psychopath is on the red
Yeah,
eye?
it's like stupid, but yeah, I mean, it was definitely some flaws in this film. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'd probably watch it again, and I'm gonna tell you why. I liked probably the first half hour of the film. I liked the setting and the atmosphere. I liked just the mundaneness of the people commuting on the train and the dark, stormy night. And I thought that was pretty cool. So just for that, I'd probably check it out one day if I was bored.
So what would you give it then? Scale of 0 to 5 bloody knives, and let's get there.
All right, so we're gonna get right to that. So it definitely was not the worst film I've ever seen. And I gotta think, it's like I don't love werewolf films. All right, so I'm gonna give it 2.5.
Okay, 2.5 bloody knives. I'm actually going to give it a 2 because again, it wasn't terrible. Like it was fine. I don't think I'll ever watch it again. But if someone put it on, like if there was like, oh, I want to watch that movie, I wouldn't be pissed off about it. So I'm going to give it a 2. And for our new listeners coming in, I know it's a little late getting to it, but we do play a drinking game when we rate movies. And usually what works is the number of bloody knives I give a movie is the number of sips Jerry needs to take, and vice versa. So I need to take 2.5 sips. He needs to take 2. Let's cheers to that, and let's
Yeah.
drink it down.
Cheers.
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 Oh, this Creekwater bourbon is just disgusting.
Man. Oh, that's the worst.
It's not good. It's not good. And you think it would, like, I guess I should have known better. It's called Creekwater. Like, it is 100 proof though. So it is, but it's 100 proof, but I don't feel the burn. It's just like
Damn.
there's something wrong with it. I don't know. I don't like it.
That's pretty brutal, man. A bunch of dudes like their feet in that creek and they're just getting that water for you.
Oh,
making
I got,
that bourbon.
I got my bourbon with. It's with feet.
Gross.
Okay, so moving on, we're gonna talk about Ginger
Yeah.
Snaps, which is a what some people might call a modern classic. It released in the year 2000. And I'll just give the plot of it really quickly. There are these two sisters, Ginger and B. I think her name is Bridget, actually. And they're both kind of like misfit, want to say goth kind of girls.
Goth girl.
Kind of, yeah, they're kind of goth girls. They're in high school. I think they're like 16, 17, something like that. They're close, inseparable. They're kind of like the outcasts of the school. Nobody likes them, although Ginger is starting to get hot, so she's starting to get noticed by the boys. They're out one night, and Ginger is attacked by a werewolf, and throughout the movie gradually turns into a werewolf. And I will say this movie is kind of a combination of 90s teen high school movie mixed with body horror, because there is a lot of that. I think one of the things I would say, and I'm not saying I like this movie or not, but I do like how it is this gradual transformation. Like, I don't know how many days the script takes place over, but Ginger kind of gradually transforms little by little, physically and mentally, into this, at the end, werewolf creature, which is kind of cool. And like, I'm sure I've seen that movie before. And I think Byte is very similar to that, where it takes place over a long period of time. They don't just automatically turn wolf, like kind of gradually goes there. And I think what works in this movie is, again, you have this sister who's watching her sister go through this and is basically trying to help her in some way, and then finally realizes like there is no really help for her, which I think is a really interesting kind of dynamic and story. Yeah, so what do you think about this movie?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, there was like a lot of that push and pull between like the sisterly relationship between Bridget and Ginger, and you could tell like basically up until that point they were just like each other's world, and then suddenly this event that was pretty gruesome happens to Ginger, has this adverse effect where it actually makes her like cool and confident and gets kind of sexy. She's is a completely different person, and basically, Bridget's watching her sister change that quickly and pull away and become someone else. Now she's more interested in like hooking up with guys and doing all these different things, where Bridget's still kind of left back in that like like kind of nobody world. So I would say that took up like the bulk of the film, is just watching that tension between them. So a lot of times I wasn't sure if I was watching a horror film or if I was just watching like a drama between two sisters. So there are parts I liked, there are things I liked. There was some I guess all these werewolf films, they always try to throw some humor in there, and I thought it was pretty funny, like where the next day after like Ginger's attack, her clothes are just like bloodied up, and there's like, it's just like real, like it's like they were soaked in blood, and the mom tries to like basically like shout it out like in the wash, and like tries to like wash her underwear because she thinks like she had her menstrual cycle. It's like, what do you think? Like, how is that possible? It literally looked like someone mopped up blood with these underwear, and she's like, oh, I'm just gonna put some shout on it and stuff. So I thought that was funny, and there was definitely some humorous things like that. But yeah, it took a while to really get to like what I would say the horror is in this film.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, and I have a note on that. Like, it doesn't really. So the movie, I think, is like an hour and 45 minutes, and it doesn't really turn horror until probably the last half. I mean, full horror until like the last half hour. But what I noticed that's interesting for me, once it gets to that point, it really drags. Like I've watched this movie a bunch of times over the years, and I think I always do turn it off at a certain point, like before it even gets to the horror. So like I would say like the first hour and 10 minutes, where it is more like that drama, is way more interesting until it turns into that horror. And I think it's like there's like a lot of, it's very dialogue heavy throughout, but it's even more like there's a lot of these like long conversations between Ginger and her sister once it's like gets to that point. And I check out once it kind of shifts to horror, which is interesting because that should be the time where I'm like super into it, but I'm not. I'm bored. And it's not that it's not like there's not violence or things happening. It takes too long to, once it gets there, it takes way too long to go. And it's a weird movie like that. And again, it feels like a typical like 90s like high school kind of movie, like a Jawbreaker, or like there's a lot of these 90s late 90s horror movies, and they're hard to watch now because of the dialogue. And the dialogue was really trying to be very hip and cool and trendy, but it's so cringe now when you hear it. It's trying too hard to be cool. And maybe that worked then, but now it just seems like ugh, like it just like the jokes, the like her Ginger snappy like comebacks, it just doesn't land.
It's lame. Yeah.
It just seems like, even though I'm sure at the time they're like, oh, this is brilliant writing, it's just now it plays like really bad writing. That's why I always tell people, like, don't write for the time you're in, like write timeless dialogue. Like if you're trying to like use a lot of like trend words, it's not going to age well. And I don't think this movie aged well at all.
I mean, it's almost 25 years old, and I was excited to check out this film, and I'm glad that we landed on it because honestly, I probably haven't watched it in 20 years, and for some reason, at that time, this film had so much buzz, like everyone was
Mhm.
always talking about
Yeah.
it, and I don't know if it was because of like Catherine Isabel, who was in it, who was like had like a quick moment back then. She did a few movies and she was kind of popping. I don't know what it was, but for some reason in my head, I thought that this movie was just like during the parts that we're talking about, was just like a lot darker and like more like serious and sinister and not really snarky and jokey. And I have pretty much like the same note you have. It's basically just these two sisters bickering for like three
Mhm.
quarters of this movie. And I checked out and I got bored for, I would say, long periods of time, like 15, 20 minutes, where I'm like, oh my God, like what are we even talking about right now? Who fucking cares? Like what, like this is not doing anything. It's just these sisters arguing about being sisters. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like what are we doing? And it was, and I don't remember that when I initially watched it, and I was never a huge fan of this film. I mean, I'm gonna come right out and say it. I was never a huge fan, and now this kind of reminded me why. I mean, I think in total there were about 3 kills in this movie and 4 dead dogs. So you killed more dogs than you killed people. And to me, that's just fucking lame. I'm sorry. That's not gruesome. That's not horror. That's almost kind of lazy to me, is like, using like a dog as like a death prop when, you're supposed to be a werewolf attacking people. So I thought that was kind of lame, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree with you. And again, I'm not saying I was ever a fan of this movie, but I did remember liking it a lot more than I liked on this rewatch. And again, maybe it's just when I watched it when it came out and I was like, the dialogue didn't bother me, or everything didn't bother me. But yeah, now watching it, it is literally just these two kind of arguing. And it just goes on forever because, again, I said it is a gradual transformation. But I feel like they could have done that a lot faster. And it didn't need to go through it. It really is, again, this like high school drama that doesn't go anywhere, that all of a sudden turns into like this horror movie. I think it's a cool concept. I will say the other thing, there's a few things I have a problem with, but the actor that they have playing Bridget, and Emily Perkins, is, and I don't want to say this, I'm going to say this, but I'm not talking necessarily about her physical appearance, but she is just one of the ugliest characters. She's just, the faces she makes, she's like almost trying to do like a Felissa Rose Sleepaway Camp thing, where she just
Mm.
looks like pissed off, and just like something about her is just ugly. And again, I don't mean that like she's physically ugly, because maybe she's not, and I'm not talking to like trying to bash somebody, but every time I see her on screen, and she's the star of the movie, she's just hard to look at because of how she's acting. She has this like snarl the whole time, and it's just it gets old to me. It's like, and what would have been interesting is if like she was more of a sympathetic character, that like you really cared about, like, oh my God, you're losing your sister to this thing. Instead, I'm just like, not for nothing, but you're kind of an asshole. Like you're this person that doesn't like nobody likes you, have no friends because you're just bitchy all the time. I don't care. I don't care about you. And I think if they would have found somebody that was maybe more mousy or just sweeter or just someone that like didn't portray that just like I hate everybody. Ugh. Like it was too much. And again, if she's gonna be on screen for the majority of the movie, like and I'm invested in her journey to save her sister, I needed something else. And I don't root for her. Like good, like your sister's gonna leave you. You suck. And I think it was bad casting. And it's funny because when they did the sequel, which I haven't seen in years, like Ginger is barely in it, and it really just follows Elizabeth Perkins. And like, you got to follow her for a 90-minute movie. Like, she's playing the same character. Like, it's like, and again, maybe she's good in other things, but in this, it's just like she's very unlikable, and it's tough to watch. I will say, other than like the werewolf at the end, the prosthetics they do on Ginger, the makeup when she's kind of like halfway there is really good. And I read that they did like it was like 3 hours to do the makeup, an hour to take it off. Like they did a really good job with that, where she like looks like human but wolf at the same time. So I guess the question I have for you is, were you a single guy? Would you fuck the werewolf Ginger before she became full wolf? When she's like on the verge, where she's got like the fangs and she's got the tail, and like when she goes to seduce that one guy, that drug dealer guy, and he just like sees that she's a fucking wolf, like she like even her chest is all fucked up, and he, like, would you?
I mean, it's Catherine Isabel, and I mean, I think everyone fell in love with her and Freddy versus Jason in that shower scene, right? Um, I'm gonna say without a doubt, 100% yes, I would. I would be all in if I was Jason, especially if I was just like some loser, like towny drug dealer. I would be all over that. The only thing that really would probably put me off was that like kind of little tail thing
That
that she
tail was
growing.
gnarly.
It
But she
kind of
taped it
looked like
back.
it looked like a little dick, and
It didn't look good. It didn't look like a tail. Yeah.
it should have been a little more pronounced. But I mean, other than that, I mean, I definitely would have been all in because I thought she was sexy as hell, especially when she had like the fangs and like those long nails. I
And
was
her
like,
eyes
damn.
were all like
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like
that was
wolfy.
hot, dude.
Yeah, it
It
looked
was
good.
it was definitely hot, and I would do it. And I would go as far as to say, is even when she turned into the werewolf, maybe I'd hit it.
Well, you've had a few drinks tonight, so
That could
anything's
be
possible.
that could be the secret burning game talking. So I don't know. So if I'm making a fool of myself, just punch that out, please.
No, it isn't. And since we called it out, like we called out the bad writing and how, like I
Yeah,
will
yeah,
call
yeah.
out a real thing of bad writing that kind of annoyed me. It's like they find out that there is this one thing that might help called monkswood,
Yeah.
and it's a flower or a plant that's not in season, so they can't get it, and they have no idea what to do with it, but they know this thing. And then B comes home, and what does her mom just happen to have brought back from the craft store? Monkswood.
Monkswood.
Like the
Yeah.
thing that like they couldn't get, like it doesn't exist because it's not in season, but the mom just happened to
Yeah,
buy like
why
a
why
batch of
why would
it.
she do that? It
Just
wasn't
like
pretty looking, and I thought it was pretty funny, that scene where they're kind of making the monkswood. It kind of reminded me a bit of like Pulp Fiction or Killing Zoe or
yes,
something like
yes.
that, where they're like making like the shot and they're like heating it up real slow, like it's heroin or some shit. And like
I
I
think it's
was
what they were
like,
trying to do. I think I
yeah,
was absolutely trying to do.
and that dude's just like, yeah, man. He's like, let's just inject it. And I was like, all right, man. I'm like, the whole thing was like cheesy to begin with, and they just happen to have it. And they made a heroin shot, and then she gets to, on the way home that day, she gets to
Yeah.
practice using it
Yeah.
by killing Jason, or well, I guess she didn't kill him. I guess she cured him or something like that. But it was just a lot of coincidences that worked out in their favor. And to me, it's like having the phone that doesn't work or the car that doesn't start. Just take a few more minutes and try to think of something a little bit better, because it was super super lazy, I think.
Yeah, it just didn't need to be. And then again, like there's the ridiculousness of the mom character. And maybe they were doing this for humor, but she finds out, I don't know if she found that Ginger's a wolf at this point, but she assumes Ginger's killed a bunch of people. And the mom's just like, you know what? Like, I'll just burn the house down, fake our suicides, and we'll just leave town. And like B's like, what about dad? Don't worry about it. Like, what is like in what world? And she's like not even like kind of freaked out about it. She's like, I'll just burn the house. Like, no big deal. Like, we'll just find new identities. Like, it's just
What the hell is
bad.
she doing with that monkswood? Maybe she knew something was up.
It's
I don't
possible.
I don't know. Yeah, and she does find like that body of, I think, Trina was her name, in the
In the
freezer.
ice. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, man, a lot of people would probably just like freak out, but she like, grabbed the frozen lasagna that she was looking for and just kind of forgot, pretended like there wasn't a body in there. And yeah, that was pretty I thought it was funny again because they always try to, as I mentioned before, a little bit of like dark humor they
Yeah.
throw into these films, even with the snarky remarks and things like that. I think all those things, personally, all those things, even her shouting out the blood-soaked underwear, I think it takes away. I think
Yeah.
it takes away from this movie. And I think if they just kind of went in the direction that I thought it should be, which was that darker direction, this would have been a great story. Two sisters kind of like at odds with each other now because one of them was bitten and turning to a vampire. I mean, it turned to a werewolf, and she wants to be a werewolf, and the sister doesn't want her to be a werewolf because she was jealous. That's
Yeah.
why. That's the reason why. That's the reason why she didn't want her to be a werewolf, not because she didn't want her to be one. These two, they were very morbid and weird. They would love being werewolves.
Oh
She was
yeah.
just jealous that she wasn't the one that was, the werewolf. So I think if they just kind of kept it in check and kind of like took out a lot of those comedic kind of whether they're lines or scenes, I think it would have been a better movie, because it just really threw the whole thing off for me. And
Yeah, and again, I think what they were trying to do is they were trying just to make like a late 90s movie, right? And they probably saw a bunch of those kind of, again, teen high school movies and were like, "Oh, what if we took one of those and like made it a horror movie?" Or even there was like those late 90s teen horror movies, like what was it? I Know What You Did Last Summer. Or, like, they were just trying to jump on that kind of bandwagon, I think, and they just try to do it in a different way. So I don't think they were trying to make this like, and maybe they were, who knows what they're trying to do, but trying to make this like serious kind of dark movie, which would have been really good. And I think maybe if they like were to make this kind of movie now, maybe they would kind of do in that direction versus trying to make this thing that's like this cultural kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, to me, like, again, and I probably haven't watched it in a long time either. I'm definitely not going to watch it for a very long time, if ever. Like,
no,
it doesn't really hold up. I will say one cool thing I thought about the movie was, and the soundtrack for these '90s movies was really important. Like, and there is a Glassjaw song in the movie, which I thought was kind of cool. I heard that, I was like, oh, what is that? Is that Glassjaw?
yeah, they definitely has some cool music. So it sounds like we're gonna wrap up. Before we wrap up, though, I want to ask you, what did you think of the werewolf reveal? So when you finally see the werewolf, which is in like probably the last 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes of the film, where Ginger finally turns and it's that big basement scene, what did you think?
So I thought it was interesting that they chose white to make a white werewolf because I haven't seen
Yeah.
that before. But again, I was let down. It looked fake to
Yeah.
me. Like the mouth, everything looked. You could tell it was as a prosthetic and a fake thing. And maybe again, maybe it looked better in 2000. If I'd like watched it on a shitty TV, it might not have been so bad. But watching it again on my nice TV, it just it looked bad. It looked silly, to be honest with you. And but again, by that point, you already have made your mind up about this movie, right? Like, it's not like the last 10 minutes are going to break it for me. I was already kind of checked out, but I was definitely not impressed. They did not need to show the wolf the way they did. And they showed the full body of the wolf, like
Yep.
it's
Another
very,
mistake.
if you see it very clearly and you look at it now and it looks incredibly fake and not scary at all. Don't think they should have ever shown
How
it.
come no one ever tells these werewolf filmmakers? It's like when they're, doing these screenings and they show like the full werewolf and no one screams
You don't
and no
need to
one
show
gets
it.
freaked out. Like why don't they just be like, you know what, maybe that's not scary enough. Maybe we need to do, more with that or show less or whatever. But it was a letdown to me as well. I was just like, oh, this is it. Looked like almost like a cartoon character
Yeah.
to
And
me
you've
a
been
little
waiting
bit.
like an
Like,
hour and a half
oh,
to see this thing. Like, I've been
see it,
waiting.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not a fan, not a fan of this at all.
I never saw the second one. I don't think I'm going to watch it ever.
I seen it years ago,
No, unless we're going to do another werewolf episode
which
for
I
some
don't think we're
reason.
going
Then
to.
I don't think so.
At least a one
This
and
is
done.
very unique for the guest we had on tonight.
Yeah.
But I'm probably going to avoid Ginger Snaps, even though I swear to God, for the longest time this movie had so much hype and everyone loves it.
Yeah, and there's a third one too, and the third one's like a period piece. It takes place in the 1800s, I think. And I've seen that once, but I don't remember it. And Catherine Isabel is in that one. I think she's in the second one, maybe for like 5-10 minutes. It's like a
Mm.
ghost or flashback or something. But I believe she has a bigger role in the third one. But again, it's who cares? Who gives a shit?
Yeah, it wasn't for me. It was a bit of a letdown. I kind of thought maybe I was just missing something. I'm glad to hear that you're kind of on the same page about this, because for some reason I thought you'd like this film. I remember us talking about it just like so many 100 years ago. I don't
Maybe I
remember.
liked it
And
better like a
maybe,
long
yeah,
time ago,
maybe then. And I
but
was like, what am I missing? I'm like, I have a
nothing.
feeling he's gonna like this. And then I'm like, I'm not seeing it, but I'm glad at the rewatch we're both kind of seeing the same thing. And this is not a great film. I'm definitely not gonna like recommend anyone to see this. I don't think it's a cult classic. I don't think it's in the horror canon. I think if it is, it needs to be removed. There are other werewolf movies that are probably a lot better than this one. So if you want to watch a werewolf film, I would say skip this one.
yeah, I mean, look, and I didn't like Howl. I would watch Howl over this one for sure.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Or
So look, again, the movie's what it is. I'm gonna give it 1.5 bloody knives because I didn't like it. I probably again I'm not gonna what will probably happen is I'll forget how much I didn't like it, and I'll hear people talking about it in a few years, and then maybe I'll put it on again, and they'll be like, oh yeah. And I'll forget we did the episode. I'd be like, wait, we did an episode on that shit? And then I'll rewatch it again and be like, oh shit.
Man.
So
All
yeah,
right, so
1.5. What do you give it?
I'm getting off easy after a long night. So I'm gonna say watch Teen Wolf instead. and I'm giving this a 1.
All right. All right.
It.
So let's cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers.
All right, cool. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this werewolf edition of Horrorheads. Find us on Instagram at horrorheadspodcast, or you can email us at horrorheadspodcast@gmail.com. Just to wrap things up, Jerry, do you know what we're doing next week? I forget. Or next episode?
Next episode, yes, we have another special guest. So we're like in a great pocket of special guests, and he's a horror author. And we're going to discuss his book and some horror comedies that he likes. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. He told me that he's taking off the next day of work. So he's ready to come on the show and lay it down.
All right.
I'm not going to mention his name yet, but you'll hear his name as we get ready for the next episode. Really looking forward to that one, and we should get some copies of his book, and we'll get a chance to read it before he's on. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
All right, awesome. All right, well, have a good night, everybody, and see you soon.
Thanks. And if you happen to be a werewolf chick, hit me up. You know what I'm saying? Good night, everyone.
All right, later.